Okay. I'll call finance.
We've always looked at this one before, you know, I didn't care about that.
Maybe that's for a
Okay, well, let's get things started here. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 5:15 p.m. We are in the Maple Room of City Hall, and with a quorum of members present, I'll be calling the finance portion of our joint meeting to order.
Okay, with a forum also of the Economic Development Committee, I will be calling this topic.
Okay, and then on the Joint Finance and Economic Development Committee agenda items that we're going to start with the joint portion of this meeting first, and then so they can adjourn, and we'll finish off with the finance stuff. So in the joint session, item number 1, discussion and possible action for purchasing property at 201 North First Avenue and 901 and 1021 Cherry Street in the city of Wausau.
Yes, so within your packet, you see the phase 2 results that you had asked for at a previous meeting. Based on those results, we're looking to go into closed session to potentially purchase or to negotiate the purchase of property.
Is there any business on the for the finance side for open session before we adjourn to close?
Question.
Yes.
The agenda reached 201 North First Street, which is not correct.
Correct. And I did speak with Attorney Jacobson on that. There is not, it was an error on my part. There is not a 201 First Street. She described it as a Scrivener's error. Obviously, it's not perfect, but there is no 201 First Street, so the intent of being Avenue, she said we could proceed. That being said, if you have issues with it, we can reschedule this discussion.
Depends on the committee.
I'm okay with it if anybody else is.
And I'm okay from the Economic Development Committee side. If there's anyone else.
Well, it's just, you know, on the wrong side of the river. There's a 200 block of First Street.
There's not a 201, correct?
There's not a 201 North First Street. No.
First Street, North First Street, but that's why if you would prefer.
No, we'll continue.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then, do you need to do some, or no?
Well, if there's no other business, if you won't get, if there's no other business, I guess we'll move on to item number 2.
And it was just, I want to make one.
What do you ask?
Any more? If there's any more discussion on before we? Is there any more discussion on item number 1 before we go into closed session? Yes.
I have some concerns about the purchase of the property. The Cherry Street property appears to be immediately adjacent to the Wausau Superfund site, and close by the old landfill that's associated with the Superfund site. And I know REI has finished their phase 2. My concern is that the EPA in 2025, I think it was March 20th, 2025, issued a report with concerns about the groundwater and PFAS on the Superfund site. And my question is, did REI do any groundwater testing for PFAS on the Cherry Street property? I didn't see that in their phase 2.
And I'm not an environmental engineer. One of the conversations we're going to look at for outcomes from your conversation today is if you'd like additional information to base your decision on the purchase price for these properties. So if that's something you would like, that's something that we can come back to at the end of this discussion, but yeah. I don't have any information on groundwater testing for PFAS specifically.
Is this the site that was looked at previously for fleet?
One of the considerations for the Cherry Street property would be the fleet facility.
Well, from what I read in the infrastructure meeting previously, Mr. Lindman was going to continue to look with the mayor at sites because they hadn't found anything that was looking good to him as far as the fleet. So I think that might be not happening with the fleet as of this point. Eric, would that be correct? That you're looking to move on from that?
Yeah, it wasn't that we're fully moving on from it, but we didn't know how long, everything was gonna take, so we're continuing to look at other sites. Other sites, whether they come up for sale, other opportunities, and even looking at previous sites that we looked at before to see if there was any changes.
Okay, so at this point, not committed to that still?
No, I think that any sites that we choose, like what is the timing, when can we kind of move in and things like that, so this could be one. Just depends on.
And there were multiple considerations for looking at the potential purchase of this property. Mainly, I think the conversation started with the River Edge Trail expansion. These are two of the areas, two of the voids that we have within that area, potentially expanding that trail. And then the redevelopment potential of the property, whether it be for a fleet facility or future commercial, residential.
And I would be concerned about the cost of remediation to that site as well, because it looks like there would be a fair amount of that.
And that's, one of the things why we did this due diligence with the phase 1 and phase 2. Want to make you aware that there is contamination. Speaking with the REI folks, they thought that this was very typical of Wausau riverfront property that's been used for industrial for 100+ years. It didn't rise to the level of a super fund, but there's going to be significant cleanup issues if we were to purchase.
Yeah, so question of Eric then, because a lot depended, I think, on your view with regards to the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any movement, or do you want to wait till closed session, or?
I have not reached out to the parking lot owners yet. We just reached out to one.
Okay.
Mhm.
If there's no other discussion in open, I will, from the finance side, entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Yes. I move to go into closed session.
Hold on, are we good? Okay.
Well, just, so there's some recent case law that came out in Old Singer versus City of Marinette, which really best practice is to explain why we're going into closed session and why we can't have this conversation in an open session. Carol, if you want to share some of the things we talked about.
Yep. So open meeting laws restrict reasons that we can go into closed session, but one of those exemptions is for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of property. So the reason we're going into closed session is the reason we are considering going into closed session to negotiate the purchase of these parcels is that if the negotiation were to happen in open session, it would negatively impact the city's bargaining position. So that's why.
Okay. You good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Alder Hanky?
Okay, I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to chapter 19.85 sub 1 sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In regards to purposes of purchasing property at 201 North First Avenue and 901 and 1021 Cherry Street in the city of Wausau.
Second from finance, Alder Tierney. Okay, this requires a roll call vote. So, Disselman,
Yes.
Tierney,
Yes.
Hanky,
Aye.
McElhaney, And I vote aye as well. Finance is, will go into closed.
And then, I'm looking for a motion with you something, right?
We
From
don't
the,
need to read it.
You don't have to read it again.
okay, but, so.
We need a
Still
motion.
need a
from
motion.
He
So
doesn't
do you
to be
need a
read.
motion, that's what, yeah, so, motion by Alder Human, second by Alder Tierney, roll call vote, so Alder Bismarck,
Yes.
Alder Tierney,
Yes.
Pinky. Aye. And
All right, we'll go into closed session, asking those that are not invited into closed session to exit the room, and we'll try to be prompt. Thank you. I like how you already had the sentence completed.
Or is it being paused or something, or?
Codes and process.
Dumb question, but do we need to close the window?
This does not get recorded, then.
Correct.